All right, we are gonna fill in the blanks. There's not many blanks in here. Actually, I filled in most of them for you. So it's steps to adding or subtracting rational exponents. So first thing that we have to do is factor the denominator and find the LCD. Do y'all know what LCD stands for? Denominator. Yes, very good. Lowest common denominator. So they have to be the same. And then it says state the values that make the expression undefined because you can't divide by what? 0. Then we're going to multiply by any missing LCD factors. Another thing, the denominators must be the same. So when we add or subtract, you combine like terms on the top and the bottom stays the same. So the first step had us factoring just the denominator, just the bottom. You don't factor the top until the very last step. So the last step, we're going to factor the top, and then we will reduce. Again, the whole reason why I had you do the day 0 homework is because you have to be good at factoring to be successful in this unit. Okay, please make sure that you do some factoring practice. All right, before we get going, I actually have a brain break before we even get started. A student provided this one. So this is going to require you to be interactive. If we're interactive in round 1, then we will play round 2 and round 3. All right. Do y'all know how to play? Y'all have to tell me what to type. Name something that people swap. Maybe books? Do people swap books? Stories? Oh, geez, I don't even know how we got that. Okay, we'll go to the next round in a minute. Okay, round one. On to the word, not the work, not word problems. I'm not very good at that game. So the directions say add or subtract and state any values that make the expression undefined. For the first problem, are there any x's or variables at all? So there's no undefined values. So we don't have to list any. But the first one is just a review of what we need to do to be able to add or subtract fractions. So step number one says that you have to have a common denominator. So right now, my denominators are 3 and 2. To get a common denominator, I have to multiply both fractions by what's missing. So this one has a 3 in the denominator. This one doesn't. So I need to multiply by 3 over 3. This fraction has a 2. This one doesn't have a 2. So I need to multiply by 2 over 2. So the first fraction turns into 4 over 6 and 3 over 6. Are the denominators the same now? When they are the same, then you can combine them or put them together. When they are the same, what you end up with is a fraction where the denominator stays the same. All that you're adding or subtracting is the top. And so I look at only the top, and it's 4 minus 3. What's 4 minus 3? 1. Okay. Now I take a look. Can I reduce this at all? No. So that is my answer. For the next problem, do they have the same denominator? No, they both have a 3, but the first one is missing the factor of x plus 2. So first thing that I have to do is write it down. And I need to multiply that first fraction by at this point, are my denominators the same? Okay, when they're the same, you can jot down any values that would make that undefined. So what can x not be equal to? It could be equal to 0 because if I plug in, the denominator cannot be equal to 0. But what can this denominator, like what can that x not be equal to? -2. Okay. When I put these fractions together, the denominators are the same, so they will stay the same. Doesn't change. The only thing that I'm doing is combining like terms on the top. When I combine like terms in the numerator, I need to remember to distribute as I do this. So I get 2x plus 4 plus 12. I can combine like terms. I can put the 4 and the 12 together. What is the last step in our directions? Yeah, so to simplify, we have to factor the top. So when I look at the numerator, can I factor this? Yes, I can use GCF and I can factor. So what divides into 2 and 16? 2. So I'm going to divide out a 2. And I'm left with x plus 8. Is there anything on the top that can reduce with the bottom? I have an x plus 2 on the bottom, but I don't see an x plus 2 on the top. So there are no factors that match up. 2 and 3 are not the same. So I am done. So what if I plugged in -2 here? What's -2 plus 2? Okay, what's 0 times 3? And you can't divide by 0. All right. Round 2. So y'all will have to be quick and loud to tell me what to type. Double points. Name something on an elephant that's huge. Feet.
What are they called?
Their back. Oh, that's probably their torso. Well, we're better than Patrick. Nick. Okay. All right. We are going to skip down to notes problem E. Because they didn't really work out the way I wanted them to. No, not yet. So for example E, the first thing that you have to do is factor the denominator. So when I take a look at this one, the first denominator is already factored. This one is not. So your first step is to rewrite and factor the denominator. So take a moment and factor the denominator of the first one. This is fast factoring. Yes, ma'am. Expert is the same. So for the second one, when you're denominator, we're trying to figure out what two things can multiply to give you two that can put together to give you negative. Oh. So as I factor that denominator, I get the same thing for the first one. Two things that can multiply to give you two, 1 and 2. So the middle term is negative, so the 2 needs to be negative. And if I have -2, I would have to subtract 1 to get -3. At this point, I need to check and see, do I have the same denominator? Almost. This one has an x minus 2 and this one doesn't. So I have to multiply the first one by x minus 2 and x minus 2. I also can jot down at this point my undefined values. X cannot be equal to what and what? Positive 2 and 1 and 2. As I rewrite this, I'm going to distribute. So I get x squared minus 2x all over x minus 1 and x minus 2. So when we add fractions, if the denominators are the same, then we can put them together. When I put them together, the denominator will stay the same. And I add the numerator. So as I add this numerator, I get x squared. What's going to happen if I have 2x minus 2x? Yeah, that's going to cancel out. That numerator. Can we factor x squared minus 1? It's perfect squares. So that turns into x plus 1 and then x minus 1. Are there any factors in the numerator and denominator that can reduce? Yes, anything that can pair up. Those can pair up. Anything else? So we can write down what we have left. And that is my answer. Yep. All right, we're gonna do our next round and then we'll do our last example. I feel like we're gonna, not very good. Name a meat you carve at the table. I feel like turkey.
Pork.
I feel like, oh, that's already beef. Beef's up there. Wonder if meats you carve at the table. What other kind of meats do people eat? Fish? Is that a meat? We guessed chicken. Lamb? Oh, there's another one? Okay, let's do the money round. Name something kids forget when leaving for school. Y'all should be good at that. Lunch?
Water bottle. Oh wait, this is. That's where all the.
Kids leave their lunch all the time. What?
It changed the route. They changed.
Oh, and we didn't read it? Oh my goodness. Oops. Well, darn. Maybe next time. Okay, I don't play enough. That's what I was thinking. Entrepreneur, interpreter. What? I was lost. Okay, sorry. I don't play enough to know how that works. The next problem. This is the last one that we're going to do together, and then I want you guys to get started on the assignment. This one is almost the same. Look at them. They're almost the same. So first thing we're going to have to do is factor that denominator of the second one. We already know how it factors because we already did it in part E. Two things that can multiply to give you 2, 1 and 2. Middle term is negative, so the 2 has to be negative. -2 minus 1 gives us -3. I check for missing terms, so the denominators have to be the same. Are they the same? No. So to the first fraction, I need to multiply by missing terms. We're missing an x minus 2. And I multiply or distribute in my numerator. My denominator is going to stay the same. But we need to be careful because I'm subtracting. If I'm subtracting, I have to distribute in a negative to both of my second terms. This is where most of us will mess up when we're subtracting. So that becomes minus 2x and plus 4. Because I'm subtracting, so I have to subtract everything. So I subtract 2x and I subtract -4, which means I add 4. So when you subtract, you've got to distribute to both pieces, or however many pieces are there. We can combine like terms. My middle terms, they're both minus 2x. I forgot to jot down any of my undefined values. they're gonna be the same as part E, because you can't be equal to 1 or 2. Is the numerator factored? Is that already factored? Remember, when you're factored, you look like this. Is this factored? No. So we're gonna have to factor. So 2 things that can multiply to give you 4, that can combine to give you 4. 2 and 2, my middle term is negative. If I have -2, I would have to subtract 2 to get to -4. Are there any terms that can reduce? Yeah, I see x -2 and x -2. So they have to match up. Everything has to match up with something. So I can't mark out both x -2s because I don't have 2 of them in the denominator. So then I write down what I have left. When you are left with one binomial in the numerator or denominator, I don't care if you put parentheses like that or don't put parentheses. But anytime you have 2, you have to put parentheses.